Hey, welcome to part 2 of the Heroes of Might and Magic style unit stack tutorial. So in the last one I showed how to set up a HUD for our units here, and so that our puppets have can display the number of units in a stack. Now in this tutorial I will start implementing the gameplay logic, which will allow us to implement the mechanics that we want. So first we'll need a place to store the actual size of the unit stacks. Not just the ones that we have for display, but the ones that we use for gameplay logic. So it would make sense to put this in the unit itself. I mean, if you are making this sort of game, you might want to modify the base unit here. In this case, I will create a child blueprint for this and just add functionality on top and keep BP unit as it is. So I'll call this BP units HoMM, and in this blueprint I will add a new variable which I call then stack size, and this will be an integer, and I'll default it to 1. I'll still want to be able to display and animate this unit, of course, and since we're just basing this on BP unit, we don't even have a child actor to display our puppet or anything like that. So to do this, I will go to our units folder, not the core units, but the top units folder, and I will create a duplicate of BP unit anim for this, and I'll call this BP unit HoMM anim, and I'll reparent this blueprint in the class settings to BP unit HoMM. So now we have all of the stuff in BP unit anim, but we also have access to the stuff in our new Heroes of Might and Magic base unit here. I mean, we could have placed the stack size and so on in directly in this anim one as well, but I prefer to keep this separate and use the anim blueprint here just to handle the stuff that interfaces between the gameplay logic here and the actions that we use for displaying stuff to the player. So just to keep it the way that I tend to organize things, but you could do it in several other ways to be sure. Also in our viewport here, we want to swap our units with this new class we made. Since we have it marked here, we can just right click one of these and we can replace them with our new one, and now they are replaced. And yeah, we should in our BP unit HoMM anim, that's a mouthful, we should change the puppet class here, the default puppet class, to our Heroes of Might and Magic puppet there. Now everything is set up, so we're using all of our new custom classes instead of the base ones. Okay, so that's enough for setup, and now let's get into the actual meat of things, changing and adding our new features. So one of the things we want is that when a unit takes damage, it doesn't die if it reaches a health of 0. Instead, we reduce the stack size, unless it takes so much damage that the stack size is reduced to 0, at which point we want to kill the unit. So this we can do in BP units HoMM. I'll just close the other tabs here so we'll have a bit more space. So where do I want to do this? I want to override a function for this. Actually, we can look into BP unit here to see all of the functions and all the stuff we have. The one that is relevant here is the modify health function. Here we can see how it is by default in BP unit. So normally if it's set to auto animate, we spawn this action that shows the health being modified. After this we change the actual health and then we kill the unit. Note the order in which I'm doing this, by the way. So the reason that I'm spawning this action for modifying health first and then killing the unit instead of doing it the other way around is that when we kill the unit we actually destroy the unit, and I prefer to have destroying an actor be the last thing that I do with the actor and don't do anything after that. So that's the reason for the order here. In some cases it might cause issues if you go the other way around, not in this particular one, but It's a good rule to go by, that I often tend to generally also spawn the actions before I do the actual gameplay logic stuff, which might modify it in ways that can, alter and change the input to the action. Might be relevant in some cases, often not. But anyway, back to the the case at hand here. So BP unit HoMM, we want to override then the modify health function. We can do this by finding our functions, clicking override, and finding then modify health. It should be here. We are. Okay. So there might be cases where we want to just run this stuff as is. If the unit is taking enough damage that it dies, then maybe we just want to do the same thing here as we do normally. But if we are anywhere in between and take enough damage to reduce reduce the stack of our units, we might want to do something differently. So this is probably going to be quite a bit of work to get this function set up correctly. Let's just get started. So one thing to keep in mind here first is that modify health, it can actually be used for healing and it can be used for doing damage. So if we're healing, I mean in Heroes of Might and Magic and so on, you won't be bringing any of the units back from the dead, so we don't want healing to affect the stack size actually. So if we're healing, we just want to change the health of the current unit, or like the one at the top of the stack. So we'll check if this health modification stack is positive or negative. We'll check the sign. So sign you can do on a float and it will be positive, or it will be 1 if it's positive, it will be -1 if this number is negative, and 0 if it's 0. So we can use a sign, and then we'll check, is this sign greater than 0? And if it is, then we want to just run our regular modify health stuff. Like so. We'll need to, of course, plug in our inputs here. I mean, we can get them like this as well, since these are input variables. We can access them as local variables anywhere. So just to make it a bit less ugly, we can do this. And that works too. Another case in which we might just want to run our regular modify health stuff is that we take so little damage that actually the stack size isn't reduced at all. So how do we check that? Well, we can check then our current health, the current health, and then we will add the change. Mind that if this is damage, this will be negative, right? So this will be essentially subtracting a number. So we'll check these against each other and we will see, are we then greater than 0? If we are at 0, we will reduce our stack size, right? So really, if either we are actually healing or we're doing so little damage that our current health of the top stacked unit is still positive, then we just want to proceed with our regular modify health code. If this is not the case, then we know that we want to modify our stack size. So we will set the stack size to something different. So we know that we will base this on like how much damage we take, because we can't just say reduce it by 1, because maybe we're taking so much damage that we're going straight past the next unit and like killing several units in the stack. So we have to figure out, how many units worth of damage are we actually doing here. I'm just copying this over here. So the result of this, if I get like the absolute value of this, so we know that this is at this point a negative number, right? Because we've checked this here. So we know that we have a negative number, and this negative number, this is how far in number of health points we are going past or like into the next stack, right? So here we're seeing how much damage are we doing to the stacks after the first one. So we can check this, and if we then divide this by max health, we will know how many units we are actually killing. So then we want to subtract this from the stack size, so we can get the stack size. We're subtracting then this value here. We can truncate it. Actually, truncating won't be right here, because even if we're just going like 1 health point over, we still want to kill an entire unit, right? So we should seal it instead. And I believe that should be correct. And then we will set the stack size to the maximum of this and 0. We don't want to have a stack size of lower than 0. And this should be, I believe, the formula for setting the stack size. And now we need to know what to set the health value for the remaining units here, like the unit that is now at the top of the stack. So we can set current health then. Set current health. And how do we figure that out? Let's see. We can take the current health. Yeah, we can do the same thing here and get the absolute value from this. I'm repeating code a bit here, but it's fine. And I'll modulate this by max health. This will give us the remainder. And then I will subtract this from the actual, oops, did I close it? No, and subtract this from max health to get the value for current health. That should give us that, though I think, yeah, this will give us something weird if our stack size is at 0, I believe. So I should check before this if this is, or I can check if it is equal to 0. So if it's not equal to 0, then we want to do this. If our stack size is 0, then we just want to set our health to 0, right? And at that point we will also want to kill our unit. And return. So yeah, this is it for gameplay logic of this part, but of course we also need to queue an action to actually display this stuff. And we can't just use the regular one that we have here for modifying health, because this modify health action, it just is set up to modify the health bar, right? It doesn't modify our stack size text, the number text that we have. So we'll need to make a new action for doing that. This will probably serve as a good base to build from. So let's find that action in core and actions, and we'll find the modify health action here, and I will duplicate it so I can modify it as I see fit. I'll take this action and I will call this isn't just modify health, because this is purely for dealing damage. This we know from all the checks we did, so I can just say deal damage HoMM, and we have a starting point. But you know, I think I might be getting ahead of myself a bit here. I've forgotten that we need to set the stack size that is displayed on our puppet's HUD from our units, because currently we're just setting it up hard-coded. So we should do that first. So let's find our puppet again in unit puppets, and this is the Hero of Might and Magic puppet. And we want to modify this setup from unit, which is called when. So at the start, at the units begin play, I can show how that works. So in the event graph, begin play here, it will spawn the puppet, and then when it spawns the puppet, it will spawn an actor of the puppet class that it has, and then it will call the setup from unit interface event on that puppet with itself as input. So that's the one that we're looking at here in the puppet. So here we can set up various, is a good place to set up various stuff at the start for the puppet. So this is also the place we probably want to set our displayed stack size. So let's give ourselves a bit of space here. And we want to set the stack size. So we want to get the stack size from our unit here. Yeah, I'll just get a new reference. But we need to be able to access our stack size, and since we did not modify BP unit directly, and this is a BP unit object reference, we will need to cast to our Heroes of Might and Magic version here. So I'm just going to do it like this. I mean, if you're doing this for real, you might want to have some warning and so on, or if it's failed, or some alternate things that happens. But for tutorial purposes, we're skipping that. So we'll do it just like this. Yeah, just place this back. Don't know why I care being so tidy when I'm just making a tutorial, but yeah, I guess maybe that's useful to see as well. And I will need to delete the hacky stuff we set up here at the end of the last tutorial. So if we now play, let's see if everything works. We should have stack sizes of, oh, they're 12. Yeah, of course they're 12. So this is because we are setting this displayed stack size, but we're not actually calling our set stack size interface event here. And it's good to do this in a consolidated place. So we can change our update HUD function here, which is used for updating the HUD of the puppet for all sorts of things. So we're doing the HUD ref, we're getting this, and then set stack size. And we're getting then the displayed stack size. Let's see, yeah, now we're at 1. If we modify the stack size, yeah, I'll need to make the stack size, make us able to modify it. So let's go back to our unit HoMM and make this editable. Just also set it to expose at spawn, why not? And now if we get to this, we can change the stack size to something else. And if we hit play, there we have a stack size of 66 for this. So all of this is working for setting up this number at the start, and now this not only reflects, it's not just what is displayed on the HUD, but this actually reflects the stack size that is at our unit. Okay, at this point I think we're ready to go back to our action that we made earlier, so the deal damage HoMM that we made here. So we want to do this a bit differently. So we will definitely want to have a target puppet as input, so we can, yeah, we want to still be able to modify its health, and we want to also be able to kill it and so on, but we will need some other stuff here as well. So yeah, let's see what we got in our the unit HoMM here. What do we have to work with to build our action? So usually with this, the action we're basing this on, we're taking actually the damage and we're sending this to the puppet as a change to its health, which is then divided by the displayed max health and something stuff like this. This won't work as well for our unit here. Let's see. That's the action. Since the change in health can be, you know, overshoot several puppets in a row, looking at the change in health in itself won't be that useful for creating our for setting the health of our health bars. We want to probably do that directly. So instead of having a damage input here, I'll call this then current health instead. And then yeah, animate flinch, we can keep that, if we want to kill the target, do we want to keep that? We can just check the stack size instead and just use that directly, I believe. So I'll have a new variable, call that stack size, integer, instance editable, expose on spawn, replicated. And I'll check this instead. If this is then equal to 0, then we want to kill the target. So then we can animate death. That works fine. So we can just remove this kill target boolean. We're still using it. Oh yeah, we're still using it because of this attempt destroy action stuff. But we don't need that actually for this event, so that's fine. Let's just get rid of that. And let's see, we'll also need then on this target puppet to call the new interface event that we had. So set stack size, and we want to set that to our stack size on the puppets. And how do we want to modify the health here? So yeah, like I said, using the old modify health here might not be the most useful, so I'll just make a new one that I call set current health instead, and I'll use a float current health for that. And then in our puppet we'll have a new one with set current health. There it is, which we use then to set our displayed current health, and then updating the HUD. Great, then we can use that in our action instead. So then set current health, we set that to our current health input, there and there. And that should be pretty good. Let's take a look. So yeah, this doesn't make too much sense. We'll just put in animate flinch directly. Really, since we're always dealing damage in this case, we know that we always want to be animating the flinch. So we can just skip this and just call this and delete our animate flinch boolean. Reason that is there is so that in the other modify health one that we use this as a base, if you're getting healed you don't want to play like a hurt animation, right? So that should be fine, I think. Okay, so let's go back to our unit then and spawn this action, and we'll find our quite a few. The deal damage 1, we'll just split this, and we want to do this before we kill the unit, certainly. Let's see at which point do we want, yeah, so we want to do it after we've set the current health, so we can use that as input. Like so. And then we will get the current health. Should we kill the target? Is that still an input here? Yes, it is, and we're not using it. Okay, away you go. Let's refresh this. Where's the refresh? That's odd. Oh, there. Okay. For source location, what are we using? I need to check what we're using that for again. So source location, oh yeah, that's what we're inputting for our animations here to see where the attack is coming from. So we're not actually using that for anything in this particular case. Yeah, since the attack is not coming from anywhere in particular, when we're just modifying health directly here. we can just use the location of our puppet, I guess. Yeah, won't make a difference. And the target will be ourselves. The stack size will be like this, should be queued. All of this looks fine. So we want to do this first. And yeah, now I guess I'll have to recheck if we're gonna kill the unit, because I want to do this afterwards. Yeah, get the stack size. Is it equal to 1 to 0, I mean? If so, we want to kill the unit. If not, we're just returning. Maybe to keep it consistent, since we have this auto animate here as input, we should have a branch on that as well. So we can, if there is any reason we want to, we can choose if we don't want to animate this. I mean, you generally, if you change the health of something, you also want to animate that health changing. So this should generally be true, but there might be cases in which you want that to happen at a different point in the action queue or something like that. So you have the option. I mean, if this is useful to have or not, I've debated that with myself, but yeah, let's just keep it like this. And that should all be good. So, moment of truth. Let's see if this all works. Let's just first change the stack size of all of these units to something a bit greater. Put it to like 5. And yeah, let's put our enemy units close to our friendly units here. Oops. Like so. And there's the widget. So we can fight. And let's up the damage a bit. I'll put it to something that is greater than the health of our units. So we should see the stacks decreasing. And if I attack now, oh, I can't attack. Oh, they're all friendly. Yeah, of course, since I replaced the actors. So let's make these guys into enemies. So if I put the faction to enemy, I can just still keep them player controlled. And now, yeah, we see that we reduced the stack size. So he went over through one stack and then a bit into the next. Since our damage is constant here and we have this, then we should go to 3 when we attack again, and a bit more than this. Yeah, so it seems to be working the way it should. Great. We should also check if they actually die when stack size reaches 0, come to think of it. So let's just quickly, yeah, maybe I should have reduced the health a bit. This will take some time. Exciting tutorial here. Okay, and one more attack and he's down. So that works. So of course, dealing damage takes some time here because we're missing one essential feature of the Heroes of Might and Magic style combat, or at least one, which is that we should be dealing more damage proportionally to how many units are in our attacking stacks. So let's do that as the next thing. But I think we're coming close to half an hour here already, so I think I'll stop this video at this point, since it is, yeah, a natural point to stop, since we're implementing a new feature next. Then we're going to go into abilities and some stuff like that to get the damage working correctly. So if you're interested in that, then stay tuned for the next video.